to the center of New York State, into the city of Utica, where last Saturday night the band REO Speedwagon, as old as they are, they hobbled out onto the stage. That's not true. They had
I hope this isn't a promo for the band.
They had a jump in their step. The band did, REO Speedwagon, and one of the people that was there was Heidi Kukowski, and Heidi was in for a good night. You enjoyed the concert, right?
Yes.
And didn't you find though that could you believe how old they've gotten?
They really have, but they still put on a great show.
They did. They really did put on a great show. So you're enjoying the show. Everything goes on. You go out. You're going home, right? Or you're maybe going to go out afterwards. You go out to your car.
And discover a big pile of glass.
They broke into the car and they stole her car. Where were you? Where were you parked, by the way?
Right behind the Stanley at the Tabernacle Baptist Church, under a light, in a church parking lot. Who would have thought?
So would that be over by the? Oh, I know exactly where you parked. I parked there before. Yeah, back in the church parking lot there.
Behind the old
So you have the Lotus Garden, and then you go past their back parking lot, and then it's to the left, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I parked there. So you're obviously upset that your car had been broken into and stolen.
Outraged.
But you also have another problem and another issue with this.
Yes. We were told by the Utica PD that this is simply a misdemeanor, that had they caught the individuals responsible, they would have been issued an appearance ticket. That's it. Not even arrested.
What? And we have a Lieutenant Hauck in studio. The problem we have here, though, is you guys do not make the laws. I've heard this before, and that's the case. You have to. Is she correct in saying that that's the case?
Yes. And to explain it fully, it's going to take a second. But when you deal with any law, you look at a couple of different things. One, you have to look at the statute as it's written, and then you have to look at case law. So if you were to open the penal law and look under grand larceny, which is a felony,
right?
You'd look and you see the theft of a car of any value over $100. So you look and say, well, it fits perfectly.
Yeah.
Well, what's happened over the years is it's been challenged many times throughout the court system. And the case law on it says that in order to charge that grand larceny charge for the theft of a motor vehicle, there has to be proof that the person that stole it had the intent to deprive the owner the return of that vehicle, which is tough to prove. So what you have to prove
is that
as the
even
police,
in the law?
It is.
I wonder what
it
the
is.
hell.
So what you have to prove is that the person intended to permanently deprive the owner of the return of that vehicle or the use of the vehicle. So, in other words, they say scrapped it, stripped it of its, sold it, went over state lines.
So somewhere along the line, there was a case, probably in New York City, where someone drove the vehicle and they drove it down to the Rite Aid, and they got out, and they were being charged with grand theft auto, and the attorney defended him, saying, "Listen, he wasn't. He was just trying to get to the Rite Aid." And how can you charge him with grand theft auto?
It's most commonly referred to as joyriding. So what they found was
especially when a kid does it, you get a kid.
And here's the thing, and understand that this isn't, as you said, the police don't make laws. We don't interpret laws. That's for courts and judges.
Mm-hmm.
So, but essentially what they've said is that just stealing a car isn't in and of itself a felony, because if you steal it for the purposes of, say, joyriding, and you just leave it on the side of the road an hour later, which many times is the case, then you shouldn't be charged with a felony. It's a misdemeanor charge. And,
Heidi,
and just to clarify, that had someone been found in that vehicle, they would have been arrested, but then most likely issued an appearance ticket. Not always, but they still would have been arrested. It's a process.
Kind of makes me.
It was our understanding that 3 people, when the vehicle was pulled over and recovered Tuesday, that 3 individuals fled and they weren't even pursued. Why was that?
I don't know about that aspect. I certainly can look at it.
Where did you hear that?
The police.
They told. And I mean, are we in a situation where you're looking at no teeth in the law, and is it worth chasing these kids, which could ultimately end up and who knows what could happen? And now you've got a national story on your hands. Is that what we're nervous about right now?
That's
picking our battles.
That's part of the thing we have to worry about. And I, from what she's sounding, it sounded more like a foot pursuit as opposed to a motor vehicle pursuit.
Yeah.
But there is, those pursuits are inherently dangerous, whether it be in a vehicle or on foot. So we certainly do make every attempt to apprehend people, but we always have to take a look at the risk versus the reward.
Yeah.
What's the danger involved in doing that, and is it worth the risk to do, to continue with it? And that's something we evaluate as it's occurring.
And Heidi, I know that's not going to make you happy by any means.
No, I certainly understand.
Now, Heidi, did you have insurance to cover this?
Yes.
Okay. Still, though,
$500 deductible,
Yeah,
and they don't cover all the missing personal property in the vehicle.
There's a violation, too, right? I mean, you feel when you've been stolen from, there is a personal violation. And it's
absolutely.
It's very difficult to live with.
Absolutely.
Because you think about, well, what if you were walking to the car and you caught them there? I mean, what could have happened? And they're going through your personal things. I mean, that is really tough. Andrew, go ahead.
We had a question from a listener that asked, Heidi, how was the car stolen? Was it hot wired? I didn't think that you could. He didn't think that you could hot wire vehicles anymore. Newer ones.
Unfortunately, our purses were stuffed under the front seat, and there was a second set of keys.
That's what they were
in
looking
one of
for.
the purses, but I don't feel that warranted a broken window.
Right. All right, hold on. I have Greg who has a quick comment. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, Heidi, are you still there?
Yes.
Hey, listen, I leased a Lieutenant Holt. If you could go outside for a minute, I leased a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I lost some income the last couple months ago. And if you'd like to find out where it's parked, I could stuff the keys underneath the seat.
Okay. All right, Greg's being funny. Okay, Greg, thanks.
Or attempting to.
Or attempting to. There goes Greg. Sorry, Heidi. I believe, though, and Lieutenant Hauck, you probably would believe, that where Heidi has to go is Assemblyman Brindisi, Senator Joe Griffo. If you want to add teeth to the law, she's got to go to the legislators.
Absolutely, and I can tell you that I've been doing this 21 years, and it's been that way ever since. So this is a very old, and not to say we've never charged someone with grand larceny, we have, but there's very specific sort of criteria you have to meet in order to charge that.
All right, Heidi, what are you going to do? You want to have a conversation with the legislators?
I would love to.
All right, how about if I'm going to give you back to Andrew, and we'll set that up for you next week?
Sounds great.
Okay, sit tight there. By the way, Jack writes in, steal a man's horse years ago, you were hanged. My, how the times have changed. And they certainly have. Now, you know that this is about kids, right? So kids steal a car, and all of a sudden they're being charged with a felony. And a defense attorney comes in, they fight it, and all of a sudden you have all this case law that just takes all the teeth out of the original law.
Sure. And again, we go back to the laws are written for the majority of people. And you can take a lot of instances and plug it into that scenario, and it seems totally unfair. But to say that, the people that go out there and steal cars are just, a bunch of young kids riding around probably isn't accurate.
Drugs.
So I certainly understand the frustration.
Yeah.
We share in that frustration, but we have to
I miss having a
follow up.
trunk, to be honest with you. A trunk was a great place to throw. I have an SUV, so I don't have a trunk. It was a great place to put any belongings. The end of the day, they know that you have belongings hidden somewhere, and usually under the seat's the place to do it. So, Lieutenant Hauck, I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Absolutely.